Hey guys, to help run the forums, host the website, and travel, we've introduced a universal service fee for in-depth coverage, including this video. My goal is to be unbiased and transparent. It's a privilege to serve you. This is not an endorsement. Let's get into it.
What is going on, everybody? Brent here, and today I am reviewing the M-560 fat tire electric bike from AddMotor. Here she is right here. I've gotten to review quite a few of the bikes from AddMotor. This one has a kind of unique looking frame to me. It kind of reminds me of like an old airplane for some reason, like a vintage airplane. Maybe it's just that foil looking stripe down the middle. I don't know. Cool bike, but before we dive into this, I do want to talk a little bit about the company here, AddMotor, and just the direct order experience, because this is a direct order only company. AddMotor does not have any physical shops. There's a couple of, there's one kind of huge pro that comes along with direct order only, and obviously that's going to be hopefully a pretty big savings in price. Like this bike right here runs for $15.99, and I think that's quite a bit less than if it was at a retailer, right? However, there are a couple of potential cons that can come along with electric bikes as well. I do want to go over those really quick before we dive into this. One of the biggest potential cons that I have found personally with the direct order only, because that's primarily the company that I work with, are direct order only. One of the biggest potential issues is just like a communication barrier. It can be kind of hard to understand these companies and get your questions answered kind of comprehensively and in a way that makes sense. That's because for a lot of them, English is not their first language, and they speak English far better than I speak any foreign language, so good on them. However, it still can be a little bit difficult to kind of get questions answered, and there could also be kind of gaps in communication, and that's actually been an issue that I have had with AddMotor. One of the coolest things about this company, AddMotor, is they've got so many different electric bikes. We've reviewed I think 5 or 6 so far on EBR, and we've got more to go. They've got a huge lineup. But the communication with the company can be a little bit tricky. I've had periods of like 2 or 3 weeks where I couldn't get a hold of them. It's difficult to get them on the phone, and it's overall it's a little tricky to get communication going, a good line of communication with these guys. So just something I want you guys to be aware about. Because another issue can be, when I get these bikes from direct order only companies, fit and finish can be an issue, right? Sometimes, especially when bikes come with like a rear rack, a front basket, accessories, fender, stuff like that, sometimes stuff doesn't really fit just right. So that can be an issue. Not really something that I've experienced personally with AddMotor. I mean, maybe on one of their bikes, the M350, the trike that we reviewed a while back, really sweet bike, but I had some trouble kind of assembling some of this stuff. But overall, assembly for these bikes, and for this bike in particular, the M560, really easy. I mean, like 15 minutes from the time I cut open the box to the time, pump up the tires and ready to go. So assembly for these guys, pretty good. Not a lot to complain about there. The other thing is just a couple of small things to be aware of, I think, with AddMotor is, there are dangers inherent in direct order only, and we've covered this quite a bit in a recent video that we did that I'll link to in the article here for the write-up. But like with AddMotor, again, like I've had issues kind of just getting stuff back to them, like getting bikes back when we're done with reviews. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer than average, sometimes up to even like 2 months. And I've heard, I've seen other people have kind of similar issues with AddMotor of just lack of communication, or if an issue arises, it's hard for them to get stuff addressed. I don't want to say that these guys are a bad company, because I don't think they are. I really think that they offer so many more styles of electric bikes than so many other companies do offer. So that's one of the coolest things about them. But that being said, there are these caveats that I want you guys to be aware of. Last thing to talk about real quick is just the shipping. So it says on the website that AddMotor ships worldwide, but when I was clicking on the drop downs to try to get pricing for you guys to see what the shipping would be like, to kind of factor that into the price, they really only ship to North America. So they ship to Canada, the US, and Mexico. That's the only drop downs I was able to access. Everything else was grayed out. But the cool thing is for shipping to the US, it's free. That's a great savings right there. So not only is it like less money than at a retail store, shipping to the US is free. Shipping to Canada and Mexico is around $200 to $300 is what I found, depending on what area I selected. You know, so some savings there for the US, maybe not so much for Canada and Mexico, and maybe if you guys live somewhere else besides those areas, you might not be able to order this bike, at least right now, from AddMotor. So just some small things to keep in mind. Now I want to dive into this bike because I really do think this is a pretty fun bike. It's kind of cool. And one other thing I do want to talk about for AddMotor that I think is really cool is they do offer a 1-year comprehensive warranty on this bike, and I feel like not every direct order company offers that. That's another one of those things where it's just kind of like a free upgrade point that increases the value overall. You know, when you factor in, you know, $15.99, so a little bit lower than in a retail shop, free shipping to the US, and then a 1-year comprehensive warranty in case something happens with the battery, the electrical system, you know, the frame, the motor, any of these parts, like, they'll work with you. So that's pretty cool. But I do want to start down here with a motor on this bike. This is a 500 watt geared hub motor from Bafang here in the back. It's got 80 newton meters of torque. This is a pretty powerful motor. I've tested this motor, you know, quite a bit now. It seems like it's a pretty common motor for these direct order only. You know, I've tried the 250 watt version, the 500, 750, and even the 1000 watt with a whopping 160 newton meters of torque. This one is kind of right in the middle, and I think it's a pretty good choice for this bike here. This has a top speed of 20 miles per hour with the throttle up there at the top, or the 12 magnet cadence sensing pedal assist down here. And this motor helps me get to 20 miles per hour relatively easily. I can reach that top speed, but it's not so much power that I'm like doing wheelies or really going much faster than 20 miles per hour. And the reason why I think it's important to have, you know, at least this powerful of a motor on a fat tire bike is because of the fat tires. I mean, these tires are awesome. They're 26 inches tall by 4 inches wide. They're just fantastic for having a wide tire patch, for having suspension qualities, because there's so much air volume in this. It's able to float over terrain, you know, grass, sand, snow, loose stuff, muds, you know, terrain that other electric bikes with narrow tires, they just wouldn't be able to go over. So that's the cool thing about these tires, but they're just big old heavy wheels and big old heavy tires. And, you know, because they are 26 inches tall, I mean, technically they're 26 inches tall, but really they're about 28 inches tall because these, you know, the tires themselves are so much taller than, again, a regular size tire. So all that extra height, you know, it translates into just less of a mechanical advantage for the motor. And so I do think it's important to have around this size. It's not to say that, you know, a less powerful motor wouldn't be good, but all that to say is this motor feels right for this bike. So yeah. Now, some other things here, since we're at this area, is something cool I want to call out is actually the spokes here in the back compared to the spokes in the front. It's probably really hard to see on camera. I want to get really close for you guys. These are the front spokes right here. These are 13 gauge, okay? That's what these look like. Now here in the back, these spokes are 12 gauge. So they're a little bit thicker, and it just adds a little bit more structural integrity to this rear wheel right here to help compensate for that added weight of the motor itself and the torque, you know, that this motor is going to be placing on the wheel. So I like that AddMotor kind of went the extra mile, upgraded these spokes, and they're also blacked out, you know, so they match the frame, they look nice, kind of blends in well with just this splash of color right here, the red and the AddMotor, the splash of the red in the rims, and just the black and the gray. I think it all kind of ties in pretty nicely together. The rims down here, these are going to be double walled, punched out rims. And what's cool about these is they're, well, first of all, I like that they're punched out because I think this red looks dope. Again, I do like the color scheme here. I like the frame style. Me personally, it's like aesthetically pleasing, but I like that aesthetically, but it also does save a little bit of weight, which is important because this bike weighs 68 pounds. So this is a hefty bike. It's heavy. It is not light by any means. So being able to save just a little bit of weight here with these rims, that's great. That's just another kind of small thing from AddMotor, and that's great. These tires themselves, these are the Kenda Juggernaut tires. Recently I reviewed a fat tire bike with a company called Chow Yang, that's for the tire brand. And now being able to compare the Chow Yang to the Kenda, I actually think the Kendas are just, they feel a little bit better. These tires do not have puncture protection. They don't have any goo inside. So keep that in mind. They can go flat, but they can be aired up to 30 PSI, and they can be aired all the way down to 5 PSI. And we're talking about that, you know, the suspension qualities of these tires. So, you know, if I wanted to add more suspension to this, because we do have front suspension, which we'll talk about in a minute, no rear suspension, no seat post suspension, but if I wanted to air this down a little bit, not just for the soggy terrain, but maybe to have some more suspension and a cushier ride, I could do that. One thing about doing that, however, is just keep in mind that the more I deflate these tires, the wider the tire patch is going to be. Floating over soggy terrain, yes, super easy, but it makes more rolling resistance. It's just going to suck more energy from the battery, and it's going to require more effort from the motor to get that going. So just look, a few things to keep in mind. Back here in the back, we've got a Shimano tourney derailleur right there. 14 to 28 spread here in the back, and a 48 tooth chainring up here in the front. Something I do like about most of the AddMotor bikes is they include this steel kind of derailleur cage right here. It's a piece of just a steel like bar that hangs down, but it helps protect the derailleur itself right here. You can see it from this side. It helps protect the derailleur, and also a little bit even the power cable that goes in the motor. In the event that I drop this bike on the right, and it might even help protect it in the event of a strike. It's possible that maybe this could block, you know, a log or a rock or something from actually hitting the derailleur and damaging this component. So I always like it when I see this. It's just something small that's going to help protect this bike in the long run. Going over here to this is a chastic. It's a plastic double-sided chainring guard. These are cool because it's double-sided. So it's going to help keep this chain really locked into place pretty snugly, and that's going to be, I think, pretty important because this is just a standard chainring. It's not like a double or a narrow wide, you know, tooth pattern here. So having this chainring on here is going to help prevent this thing from popping off towards the inside, and it's going to help it from popping off towards the outside. Now, the only thing about this chainring guard is it's plastic. Okay, so that's great because it's lightweight, which again is important because 68 pounds. Heavy bike, right? So it's plastic, it's lightweight. However, it is going to be susceptible to breaking if I do get a strike on the chainring guard here. And it's really not going to do a whole lot realistically in the way of protecting the actual chainring teeth from getting bent, again, in the event of a strike. So good for saving weight, not the best for protection. Down here, we do have the external 12 magnet cadence sensor. Let's see if I can get a clean shot of that for you. There we go. Yeah, you can kind of see the magnets down there. 12 magnet cadence sensor. So basically this thing detects motion whenever I revolve the cranks right here. There's a little bit of a delay with this cadence sensor, as with most cadence sensors. Whenever I start pedaling, from the time that I start pedaling and stop pedaling to the time the motor actually starts spitting out power and whoosh, cuts off, yeah, there's a delay. The delay is really noticeable if I'm in a higher gear and I'm starting at a low speed, because it takes longer for the cranks to revolve. So it takes longer for, you know, this cadence sensor to kind of detect the movement. So yeah, and it can also take a little bit of time for it to realize, hey, oh, I've stopped pedaling, let's cut off power to the motor. Fortunately, there's two ways I can get around this to kind of control the output of the motor manually. So number one, the throttle here on this bike is going to be live from 0 miles per hour. Whenever I turn on the bike, this throttle is live, which is awesome because number one, it helps me to just get going really quickly if I want to, you know, cross a crosswalk, if I want to, you know, whatever, if I want to. But really, I use this a lot for climbing stairs, and I always say this because it's just a lifesaver, guys. When I have a throttle that's live at 0 miles per hour and a heavy bike like this, getting it up to the second story, third story, is just so much easier being able to use a throttle. But it's great too because it allows me to override that cadence sensor from 0 miles per hour. So I don't have to wait for that to start. I can use the throttle to get me going. I can still pedal, and then once I get up to speed, once the cranks are revolving fast enough, just, you know, I can forget the throttle and then just let the cadence sensor kind of do its thing. I can also use the motor inhibitors right here that are built into the brake levers to kind of control the shut off of the motor as well. So basically, so if I just slightly depress these brake levers, just about like right there, not even a lot at all, the motor inhibitors will activate, and it's going to cut power to the motor. So I use this a lot to kind of manually control when the motor is putting out power when I'm trying to navigate technical terrain at low speeds, because at low speeds I'm typically in a low gear, the cranks are evolving more quickly, and it feels like sometimes it actually activates when I don't want it to activate. So it's nice to be able to kind of control that, shut it off if I want to. Having motor inhibitors to me is also just a really important feature for electric bikes, because it just ensures the shortest possible stopping distance. So I'm never going to be fighting against the motor. If I have an emergency braking situation, if there's a car in front of me and I panic and I forget to let off the throttle, for some reason, if I forget to stop pedaling and the motor's activated or whatever, like, it doesn't matter. All I have to do is hit the brakes and the electronics takes care of the rest. Cuts power to the motor, boom, no issue. I love that. I really like that a lot. Here in the middle, we have the battery. So this is going to be a 48 volt system for this battery, 10.4 amp hours, about 499.2 watt hours for this. A couple cool things about this battery is it does have a little quick kind of battery indicator up here on the top, 4-bar battery indicator. Nice just way to easily check this if you don't want to turn the bike. On the right hand side is a full-size USB type A charger. I have like literally no fingernails, so that's just not going to work. I can't open it. Okay, it doesn't matter. So there's a full-size USB type A port right here, which is really cool because it means I can charge accessories while I'm riding from the battery right here. So if I wanted to like maybe just tape or like zip tie some wires up here, I could feed like a light up here, or like you know, just like a cable for my phone, whatever, or I could use it to wire something maybe, you know, to the back. I could put like a light back here, but I have that option. It also means that if I take this battery off the bike, it can double as like a portable power bank, you know, so I can like charge my phone up on the go. It just gives more options. And for me, like, that's a really important little feature. I really like that. One thing, so the keyhole is here at the top as well, at the top of the battery. That's great. Just kind of keeps the key away from the cranks. It's not going to interfere with that. Sometimes, yeah, sometimes keyholes are at the bottom for whatever reason, and that can get in the way of the cranks, especially if there's like one key inserted and the one key like dangling off to the side. I've had that happen before. Also, having the keyhole up here just means that I'm not going to really have any strikes. Like sometimes, like with the Silverfish style batteries, they'll put it here behind the seat post, and they'll put the key like right here, somewhere right here, and then like when I'm pedaling, sometimes I can strike the key. So not really an issue here. The only thing though is that the charging port is going to be right here at the bottom of the battery. So the only caution I would give with that is if I'm charging this bike up, the cord is going to be susceptible to getting kind of caught up with the cranks right here. So, you know, the cord could get caught there, it could snag, it could damage the cable, it could even damage the battery and maybe render this whole bike inoperable. So just something to keep in mind. Me personally, I typically end up using the key here and just removing the battery and charging it off the bike, just because I don't want to have to run into that issue, okay? That's just me personally, but this is what the battery looks like right here. There's where it plugs into the bike. There's the back of it. Now to put this battery back in, I do have to pull the latch. Oh, careful. Okay, so in order to put this battery back in, I got to turn the key and try to, yeah, okay, there we go, it worked, one-handed, not bad. So sometimes, you know, some of these latches, you don't have to turn the key, you can just push the battery in. This one, the key has to be turned to move up that latch before it can kind of sink in there and be good to go. The battery, the charger for this is a 2.5 amp output battery charger. So it's a little bit more powerful than the standard 2 amp charger, which is great. It should charge this thing up, you know, a little bit faster, help get me out back on the road a little bit quicker than if it was just a 2 amp charger. Not a huge difference, but you know, it's something there. I like that, that's nice. The kickstand back here in the back on this side is going to be an adjustable length kickstand. So there's a screw in the back. Let me see if I can see that for you guys. Probably not. Maybe? Yeah, probably not. But there's a screw in the back there. If I loosen that, I can bring this up or I can let it down. This changes the angle of the bike when it's resting. It's also in the rear, so it's going to be out of the way of the crank. So no pedal lock, which is a huge deal for me. I love that because if I'm storing this thing in a tight space, pulling it backwards, like I don't want to have to deal with the cranks getting messed up or getting caught up in the kickstand. So wonderful choice to put that back here. I like kickstands back here in the back. Brakes for this are going to be 180 millimeter discs in the front and the rear. There's the rear, here's the front, and they're mechanical disc brakes. So mechanical disc brakes, you know, one of the cool things about those is they're simpler than hydraulic brakes. Just less to deal with. Sometimes really the only thing that can happen with these is, you know, this wire can kind of stretch over time, and if that happens, if I wanted to, I could just unscrew this right here, tighten this wire, screw it back down, and it's pretty much going to be good to go. It's just a simpler operation. However, mechanical disc brakes, they require a little bit more pressure to be applied to the brake levers in order to actually get the maximum stopping power. So, you know, for me, it takes a fair amount of strength to really pull this and to pull it hard enough to get a full stop out of it, compared to, you know, a hydraulic disc brake that may not take as much effort on the lever. Now, the good thing about these brake levers is they are 4-finger, nice and long. They got a rubberized edge, so it's, you know, good kind of grip purchase on these. However, they're not adjustable. So I can't let these in and I can't take them out, you know, to change the distance from my grip. So for some riders with extra small, extra large hands, they might find this difficult, or maybe they'll find it okay. It just kind of depends, I guess. But one thing I do like about this is they have the flick bell kind of right there in the brake cluster, and I love it right there. It's just when I ride, like my fingers rest on the brake lever and the bell. It's a good position. It keeps the handlebars kind of clutter free. I really like that a lot. Over here towards the front of the bike, we've got the suspensions. This is a Mozo spring suspension right here. We've got preload adjust on this side. And then over here, we've got the compression clicker and all the way to a lockout. So basically, you know, it just gives me some options to fine tune this suspension for my weight, which is about 185 pounds, and also my ride style. It just gives me a little bit of options on what I can do with that. I can even, you know, put this all the way to the other side, and it's gonna lock these shocks. It's gonna, well, I can't really show you, but it's gonna make them dead. And I can use that if I'm on pavement, right? If I don't need the suspension, if I wanna maximize efficiency, maximize range, I can do that here by just kind of locking these out. But I'm gonna unlock them though, because I wanna use them. The headlight up here is going to be a Spaninga Trendo headlight. It's attached to the arch of the front suspension right here. So the cool thing about that is when I turn the handlebars, this headlight is going to turn with me. So it's going to illuminate where I'm steering, as opposed to being attached to the frame. It's going to just always shoot straight forward. However, being attached to the arch does mean it's going to be susceptible to some more vibration. It'll be unsuspended weight, so it's probably going to vibrate and rattle around more. It might come loose over time, might, you know, kind of fall, need to be readjusted. So just one of those things to kind of keep in mind. But while we're over here, something I really appreciate about this bike is they do, you know, AddMotor does a really good job, I think, of just the cable management. Like everything just is really, really clean. They do a good job with the wire wraps here. And I also like with this bike that, you know, the wires are pretty much almost all internally routed. They feed into the frame right there, into the down tube, and they spit out at the bottom. And it's just, you know, overall it just keeps things looking clean. And, you know, I really appreciate that. So again, overall, I just do want to say this bike is 68 pounds. It's heavy. The frame, it only comes in one frame size. It's going to be a 20-inch frame right here, and that's going to be kind of limiting because this frame, it might fit great for me. It might fit great for the next person, but it might not fit for everybody. So it's just going to limit who can comfortably ride this bike, and it might exclude some riders just altogether because it might be too big or might be too small for them. And that goes back to really to AddMotor, you know, and they've got so many different types of electric bikes, so many different styles, but they don't always have a lot of options. They don't always have a lot of frame sizes. They don't always have a lot of colors. And even in this one, the only color option that I have is going to be black. And there's just not a lot of like upgrade options either. Like I can't get fenders for this. I can't get, you know, a rear rack or front basket, you know, really anything. That goes back to kind of the limitations, I think, of AddMotor and just kind of direct order sometimes in general. And speaking of the frame here, also, this frame itself is just a little limiting. There is like a boss right here in the back that I could probably attach a fender to. I think you guys can see that right here. There's also a boss right down here, so I could probably attach a fender there. Maybe there's like a way I could get, you know, a rack attached here and, you know, attachment point down there, maybe attach him here as well, but it's not really built, you know, there's no real rack bosses here, and it just kind of limits it. And it's a fat tire bike. It's a shame because, you know, having that added functionality of being able to, I don't know, take this bike packing or an extended trip, like that would just be kind of cool, you know. There's also no water bottle or bottle cage bosses, and I think that there's plenty of room here, so just not really sure why they didn't do that. But again, just kind of a limitation, I guess, of this frame, and, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the control center here. So one thing about, before we go to the control center, this bike will be able to be turned on without having to have the key in it, which is awesome. So the key, as you can see, is not inserted, but if I do a long press of the M button right here, the screen comes to life, and I'm pretty much ready to ride. So again, like I was saying, throttle is live from 0 miles per hour. All I have to do is twist it, thing starts moving. That's really cool. It is going to start in pedal assist level 1 every single time. So even if I turn it up, so like let's just say 3, and let's say I turn the headlights on and the backlight, okay, got all that stuff going. Okay, I'm gonna turn off the bike now and come back 5 minutes later, turn it back on, Nope, it's not going to save my settings. It reverts back to pedal assist level 1. You know, a lot of these bikes do that, and I don't understand why they don't make it so that whatever I leave it in, it should go back to that. It should have like a memory. I mean, it's connected to the battery, but that's not a big deal. It's just a small thing, just like a personal, like nitpicky thing, honestly, for me. Overall, I really do like this display. This is an AddMotor branded Bafang display. It's got a 5-bar battery indicator up here on the top, odometer top right, speed in the middle, what mode I'm in. It's got like the name, eco, like power, all that stuff. Bottom left is going to be my pedal assist level. It'll be 1 through 5, and then bottom right is my wattage output. I can also kind of switch between what I want to see here on this display. So if I just tap the M button, whoop, you can see on the top right it switches between tripometer and odometer. And if I hold the up arrow right here, I'll also get a switch between speed, average speed, and then top speed or max speed right there. If I hold it up one more time, it'll go back to just current speed. And then to show you what it looks like to go up through the pedal assist levels, that's 2, 3, and you can kind of see the name changing right there. 4, and then power mode. I mean, come on, always got to keep it in power mode, right? Just kidding. Actually, sometimes it's good to keep it in the lower pedal assist modes to conserve battery, but I like power mode, obviously. So we'll turn that back down. To get into the settings of this, I can hold the up and the down arrow, and this is what that looks like. Kind of just tap the M button to toggle through different settings here. Hold the M button to go back. So that's just kind of a nice little way to get back into the settings if I want to change something, if I want to tweak a specific setting. If I hold if I hold the down arrow, it's going to go into walk mode, which is a cool feature. If I just want to walk this bike beside me, especially up the hill. Honestly though, I typically end up using the throttle, you know, to feather stuff more than I use the walk mode, just me personally. To turn on the lights up front and the display backlight, I'm going to hold the up arrow and the M button. And you can see the backlight kind of starts to glow, and we can also see that this front headlight is on right here. This headlight, by the way, this spinning Trendo, it's a fine headlight for increasing visibility. You can see the kind of spotlight on my hand there. It's definitely going to increase visibility a little bit from the front. However, these lights aren't very bright. It's not really going to illuminate my path very much. So if I was going to ride at night, I would probably get like a more powerful aftermarket light and attach it to the handlebars, to my helmet, whatever. And then just overall, you know, the lighting on this, the visibility is going to be kind of low because there's no tail light. Yes, the black frame is going to kind of blend into the night. So again, just for safety, if you guys wanted to, it might be a good idea to kind of get like a blinking light for the back, or like a helmet with lights in it, just stuff like that, just to increase visibility overall. One last thing about this display right here is kind of how the different pedal assist levels work. So the lowest pedal assist level is going to be 1 here. And the difference between like pedal assist level 1 and 2 is, yeah, there's a little bit of a difference in the output of the motor, but really it's almost just like a speed limiter. So the motor's going to cut off like around 10 miles per hour in pedal assist level 1, like 12 miles per hour in 2, 16 and 3, like whatever, like it kind of bumps up a little bit each time. But it feels like the throttle, it gives me full power of the motor and will override the pedal assist setting, which is cool. That's the setup that I like there, because it allows me to have full power from the motor with the throttle regardless of what pedal assist level I'm in. So if I want to conserve battery and just, you know, try to use pedal assist, I can keep it in 1. If I have a big hill, if I got to get going fast for some reason, I can just twist the throttle and kind of use it that way. So yeah. Right, we have covered most of the stuff for this bike. Let's take it out for a quick ride and see what this thing looks like in action. This first clip is a chest mounted shot, and I'm going through the same path that I've gone through a couple of times. I think this is going to be kind of like my standard path for you guys, because it's, I think, kind of cool to see the same area with different bikes just to see how they handle it. This time I'm going to kind of just cut across this open field and basically just kind of mess around for a minute, and I will let you watch this clip and then I will tune back in for the next one. This one is a backwards, or I guess frontwards facing shot, just looking at the bike from the front of it. Just taking the same path here and really just trying to show you guys a different angle to try to give you an idea of what this thing looks like in action, and hopefully to give you guys kind of an idea of how it performs with this limited off-road. This isn't like anything super heavy duty. I think kind of skidded out there just a little bit, but nothing really heavy duty, just some moderate stuff. Stuff that's that works well with this suspension, and stuff that works well with these fat tires. And this last clip will just be of me starting and stopping pedaling, so you guys can hear the motor starting and cutting off and kind of see the delay I was talking about. And I'll also switch gears here for you. Alright guys, that is it for the AddMotoR M-560 review. Just real quick in summary, I think this is a cool bike for kind of cruising the city, but it also has some off-road capabilities. It's priced at $15.99, which is going to be a lot less probably than if I were to buy this same bike or something really similar from a retail store. I like that it has the fat tires here. It just gives me some more suspension properties, makes my ride pretty cushy, and it also allows me to kind of deflate them if I wanted to. And it's good for tackling sand, snow, loose terrain. This could be a really cool bike to just cruise along the beach with, to cruise along, maybe like a snowy trail if you lived in Tahoe or Colorado, Nevada, whatever, a place with snow. You could take this out there. Personally, I like the way this frame looks. A lot of cool little stuff to this. There's a couple of little upgrade features that I think AddMotoR went above and beyond with, just namely the increased thickness of the spokes back here, just to increase rigidity, increase structural integrity. I like that they have the steel derailleur cage here to also kind of just add some more protection to the derailleur itself, and the power cable, just hopefully increase the overall longevity. Again though, this bike does only come in one frame size, so it's going to be limiting again for who can ride this, right? So extra small riders, extra tall riders, this might not work for them, and there's no other options. This is it. Also, if black is not really your color, if you're more like a bright color person, you wanted red, white, something more visible at night, that's just not really an option either. Kind of what you see is what you get, with this bike right here. But for those looking for a leisurely bike, something that's not really going to be used for like hunting, not used for bike packing, not something for storage because that lack of really ability to kind of put a rack back there or a basket in the front, this might be a good option. It's a fun bike. It's decently powerful, got a good top speed. It's kept at a class 2, so it's going to be legal in a lot more areas in a class 3. Yeah, it's fun overall. So I hope you guys dug that review. Hope you're having a very awesome day. If you want to see the full write-up, head over to ElectricBikeReview.com. If you are going out to ride, of course, have fun and ride safe. Catch you next time.